Welcome to Nature Therapy Online. Hello friends, and welcome to Season 2 of the Nature Therapy Online podcast. My name is Stephen McCabe and I'm an ecotherapist living in Midlothian in Scotland, and this is my podcast and I'm delighted that you're here listening, so thanks very much. So as I just said, this is Season 2 of the podcast. Season 1 finished a few months ago and I was running it as a weekly podcast. I did almost 50 episodes, I think, and was very much aware that I needed to stop and take a little bit of stock to see how the podcast would move forward. I was very busy, still am, but things are calming down a little bit at least. And I have some ideas about how I'd like to move forward with the podcast. And it's pretty much in line with what I was suggesting when Season 1 finished, which is move to monthly episodes rather than weekly. It's simply been really hard to keep up with weekly podcasts, and the difficulty with that is that a lot of the topics that come up are things that I'm really passionate about, and not only are they things that I'm really passionate about, but they're also topics and issues that require some contemplation, and they require us and myself as well to take things a little slowly when we deliver, to be more mindful and appreciative of being alive, basically. And I feel like if I'm struggling to do podcasts every week and there's an element of rushing to get podcasts completed, then I'm not honouring the topic, I'm not honouring nature, and I'm not doing the world of ecotherapy any justice. Even if only 20 people tune in and listen to each podcast, if there's anything of rush that's coming through, which I hope didn't come through, but if there is, because sometimes these things come through in ways you don't even realise, then I feel like I'm not doing the job that I would like to do. As I say, I really enjoyed doing Season 1. I don't feel like I ever got to the point where I was really rushing or certainly stressing about it, but I was aware that my working life was getting busier and busier and that I needed to change things before that happened, really. So here I am. I'm going to create monthly episodes. I'm not exactly sure which day of the month I'm going to release them on, and I think that's also a part of my new approach, which is not being too strict and not being too regimented. And that flies in the face of everything you're supposed to do when you run a podcast. I'm aware of that. I'm also aware that it will mean probably less people over time will listen to the podcast. And that's fine with me as well. I feel like I would rather produce something authentic when it needs to be produced and when I have something to share, than to use it purely as a promotional tool and do everything in this regimented way. I mean, as I say, I do use it as a promotional tool, as you know, and I do share my projects and the things that I'm up to on each episode. You know, it's a waste of a platform if I don't do that. But at the same time, if it's only a promotional tool, then it feels really hollow to me. It feels, you know, it just feels like a commercial venture, and that is not what this is, you know. So episodes will come as they come. They will come authentically when there's something that I need to share, but I'm pretty sure that I can manage a good sized episode each month, because this is my life and I love it and I'm passionate about it. So, you know, that shouldn't be any issue. But if I ever am late with an episode, don't worry, one will come. These episodes are like nature itself. When they're ready, they will bloom, and that's not always on time or when we expect them. So there we go. That's where I am with the podcast, and I really hope that you're all doing well and enjoying whatever season it is where you are, whether you're in the start of summer right now in the northern hemisphere, or maybe you're just moving into winter in the southern hemisphere, or perhaps you're just listening to this podcast sometime in the future. It could be any season, and that's, as I always make a point of saying on podcasts, I don't assume that people are listening to these sessions, these audio sessions, if you want to phrase them like that, as they're being recorded or on the week that they're recorded, because that's not the case. I often listen to podcasts years after they've been made, so you might be listening 10 years in the future in the middle of spring, and if that's you, then welcome, person in the future. Isn't time and technology a strange thing indeed? So the theme of this month's episode, I'm going to have to get in the habit of saying that rather than this week's episode, but the theme of this month's episode is music. So I'm going to do an episode all about nature and music, and specifically looking at the therapeutic aspects, I suppose, of music when it incorporates nature into it. And that can be in all kinds of ways. So somebody might write a song that has lyrics that honor nature or celebrate nature, or just discuss nature in all kinds of ways. And it may be through incorporating nature sounds into the music itself. So that could be perhaps, I don't know, new age music, classical music that brings in sound, that uses the sound of birds singing or the waves of the sea, and brings it into the music itself, and uses that as the soundscape. So there's all kinds of ways that music and nature come together. And I suppose just to share a wee bit about my background with music, I was a punk musician for years. I played guitar and I sang, I screamed and I shouted, and I was very angry about all kinds of things. And my music was about sharing my anger, primarily, I would say, sharing my point of views, sharing my opinions. And I'm really happy that I did that with my life. I'm proud of some of the things I did, but I'm very much aware that it's not where I am in my life now, and it was something that I needed to move away from, because I guess going back to that theme of authenticity, it didn't feel authentic to me anymore. I felt like I was changing as a person, and yet I was continuing to do this music that wasn't really representing where I was in life, and I had to put it to an end, which was very difficult. It's difficult stopping anything after 20 years. We identify with the things that we do so strongly. But the reason I wanted to share that is not just because it is here with this theme of music today, but it's also, a big part of where I moved to where I am and what I'm doing in life was leaving music behind, and making that big change. And nature taught me that it was okay not to identify with the things I identified with in my life. Music was a very authentic thing for me for many years, but as soon as things stop feeling authentic, that's usually when we need to reevaluate our lives. So that's a little bit about my background with music, but the music that I listen to has changed so much. Over the last year, I've been listening to a band called Dead Can Dance a lot, a band who bring together alternative and spiritual music really closely. I've been listening to Yoko Ono a lot, who really honors nature in a lot of ways. And I've been listening to a lot of electronic new age music, which I never thought I would listen to. Again, going back to this thing of identification with music. We identify with music, I think, in a lot of ways. We have a very strange, I think, cultural relationship with music, and there's probably a lot of music years ago that I would have really bonded with and really liked, but I wouldn't have listened to it because I didn't identify with it. I didn't think that it represented, quote unquote, who I am. Whereas I suppose a place that nature teaches me and teaches us to move into, I think, is a space where there's flexibility, and we don't have to identify so strongly with things. We stop experiencing life when we box ourselves in and shut our ears to in this case music, because we don't think it's hip enough, or we don't think it represents us, or it's got anything for us. And these days I've been opening my ears and listening to music differently. Music has become like meditation to me. It's something that I give, when I do listen to it, 100% to. But it's something I do less. I listen to music less. And I think that there's value in listening to music less, but listening to it more closely than we would do otherwise. Because I really think that in our culture, music has become something that we consume. It's something that's there all the time in the background, whether it's in the background of a film or a movie we're watching, whether it's on the background in a shop or a store while we're shopping, whether we are just going about our everyday business. We feel perhaps that we need to have the radio on. Maybe we feel like there needs to be some noise in the background. And I feel that this really disconnects us in a lot of ways, not just from nature and from what is around us naturally, the sound of the birds, the sound of the wind. But I think it also disconnects us from music itself, because we begin to value it less. It just becomes this thing that's always there, and something that we don't really pay attention to. And for me, this whole thing of it being noise and being used just for drama in movies, or having this purpose where it's just present without having any attention being paid to it, is something that I really want to move away from in my life. And I recommend that we all try a little bit to do this. I appreciate if we live in cities and there's a lot of noise in the background. Sometimes we want to choose what noise we have rather than listening to the traffic or people shouting at us. So, I guess, like everything I recommend on this podcast, there are no hard and fast rules, but I think there's something about awareness and us being aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it. So if we are using music as a background noise, we know that we're doing it, and we know that there's a reason that we're doing it, and we're not just having it there and being present in our lives constantly and creating constant noise in our minds without us really questioning why we're doing it. This is when culture overtakes sanity to me, and really, takes away from the art of music itself. Good music deserves our attention. And I'm telling you this because I'm going to be playing 4 tracks today, 4 pieces of music, 4 songs, however you want to refer to this beautiful noise that us humans create and appreciate, called music. And when I do play them, I want you not to just have them on in the background, and not for it just to be some noise that you hear, not to become all of a sudden something that you stop listening to on the podcast because it's not my voice anymore sharing words. I want you to give it as much attention as you did. And even if you get to the end of each song or each piece and you think, nah, didn't like that, there's something important about giving each moment attention, whether that's music or anything else in life, as much as we can, or as much as we can with our crazy brains anyway, because we do have crazy minds, don't we? And it's really hard to switch off from them. And that's partly what this podcast is all about as well, if you haven't tuned in before, paying attention specifically to nature. And I suppose nature itself is something that we need to reevaluate our relationship with. It's way more important to reevaluate our relationship with nature than it is at this moment in time to reevaluate our relationship with anything else at all, because for obvious reasons, it's imperative. Our survival depends on reevaluating the relationship. And I suppose 2 elements of that is the way we see nature as a resource. And of course, nature is a resource. Everything comes from nature. Every single thing comes from nature. Nothing just appears, no matter how much we manipulate things and create chemicals and plastics and all kinds of all comes from nature at one point. And I think there's also this thing about conquering, when we do go out within nature. Um, and I see this language quite a lot. And I think this has been with us for a really long time because I was reading this wonderful book called Zen and Japanese Culture by D.T. Suzuki. It's a Buddhist classic, and it's quite dated in a lot of way. It's references to Japanese culture. Of course, it was written almost 100 years ago. Japan is, like the rest of the world, a completely different place now. But still, there's so much about the relationship between Zen practice and nature that I think is really worthwhile and still relevant to read in this particular book. And even then, it's 100 years ago, and it's talking about Japanese culture in, say, 1920, and it talks about this Western attitude that we have about conquering nature. Going up a mountain and just being there. Almost like I did this. This is something I said I could do, and I'm not knocking that, folks. If you are into hiking and climbing, I think it's brilliant. I think it's wonderful, but I think for me, there's something around our reasons that are really important to look at when we connect with nature, and not just treating nature as something that we can say we've done or somewhere that we can say we've been, but actually appreciating it whilst we're there, and being with what's happening and being around us. So if we climb an incredible mountain, we go somewhere beautiful, we stop and we look and we appreciate where we are and what we're standing upon. And for me, this also ties in with this episode and with this theme, because music that incorporates nature is inviting us to do that, whether that's through the lyrics and whether that's through sounds that have been incorporated in from nature. It's inviting us to pay attention to the music, to the art that music is. It's not just something to be consumed, it's art, sound art, but also to appreciate nature in those moments and the sounds of nature and reality and what it's giving to us, what this music is giving to us in this moment that we're listening. Now, you might hear in the background here um, some sounds from, there's a small children's nursery next to our house. And I live in a tiny village, so there's not much traffic going by. But sometimes there's cars pulling up to drop off children at the nursery or collect them. The nursery is basically the only building in this village that isn't a house, besides a wee community hall that isn't in use at the moment due to COVID. And I wanted just to draw attention to that sound that you might be hearing at the moment, because I think in many previous episodes where I was recording indoors, I would often, I think, keep the windows closed or try to minimize noise from external sources. And I've decided not to do that anymore. First of all, it's a hot day, and I want to enjoy recording this podcast with you. And part of enjoying it is sitting up in this little attic room and having an open window. That's again me trying to be more authentic here, but also to share with you the sounds that come from where I am and allowing them to mingle with the sounds where you are. There's my cat scratching away at something. Can you hear that? I don't know what she's destroying, but she's destroying something, and that's nature in action also. So I want you, as I move on now to start playing the songs, I want you to treat each song as a meditation. I'm going to introduce each song a little bit and tell you why I've chosen it as I move along in the podcast. And obviously the tracks that I've chosen are influenced by my taste and where I am in life. You know, music and nature blend together in so many ways and cover so many genres, so many approaches, so many cultures, you know, so many traditions. It's not something that's ever going to be captured and represented in one small podcast episode. So this is a an invitation for you to explore more or to even ponder on where music and nature has met for you, maybe any songs that you appreciate. And if there are any songs that you appreciate and you want to share them, I would like you please to post them on the blog page for this. So I may do more episodes in the future, but it can be difficult to get permission to play songs for podcasts. So I can't promise that if you recommend something to me that I'm going to be able to play it, because the chances are I won't. I won't be able to, you know. So if you do have music that you want to recommend or something that you come across, and that doesn't matter if it's this week or you're that person listening in 10 years time, please go to naturetherapyonline.net /podcast/music. So that's naturetherapyonline.net /podcast/music. And I would like you to post links to the songs there. It would be really nice to have a page where we share nature music together. So you will see the little blog post that accompanies each podcast there, and just scroll down to the bottom and post away and share, and let's try and make this a conversation and something that we share with each other. So now this first track that I'm going to play is by a Japanese artist called Hiroshi Yoshimura. And Hiroshi Yoshimura was a new age musician from Japan who was active in the 1980s. And he created a lot of music that was played in galleries in Japan at the time. So the music that he created wasn't necessarily created to be something that you listen to solely as a piece of music. He wanted it to be something that influenced your experience of your environment. And this was part of a bigger movement in Japan in the 80s of electronic new age music that was called environmental music, or Japanese environmental music. And I guess when we think about the term environmental, we instantly think about, you know, the environment, and what that means for us, I guess, is, you know, outdoors, trees, nature, all of those things. But this was meant in the broadest possible sense. So it was talking about, this kind of music was referring to the environment that you're in. So sometimes music was created for an exhibition, and the music was as much a part of the exhibition as the sculptures and the paintings and the art that was on display. And I really love this idea. And this particular song is called TV. It incorporates some nature sounds really beautifully, I think. And it's from an album called Green by Hiroshi Yoshimura, and it's got a beautiful picture of green leaves on the cover, very close up. There is nature all over it. There is no lyrics. He uses sound and he uses the environment to portray something that's beyond words, I think. So I'm going to invite you to pay attention, to listen closely, and just to be with this song, with this piece for the next 4 minutes. When your mind wanders, just bring it back to the sound. This is Hiroshi Yoshimura and TV. Thanks for listening, folks, and I really hope that you appreciated Hiroshi Yoshimura, and I encourage you to find out more. Again, I'm going to be listing these songs with some links on my website on the blog page for this podcast, so you can check out the links and the artists at naturetherapyonline.net/podcast/music. So that's naturetherapyonline.net/podcast/music. Now I'm going to play something very different. It's by a band called Dead Can Dance. So you may know this band. They're pretty famous. They are a band from Australia, comprising of two people, Lisa Gerrard and Brendan Perry, and they formed in the 80s and they're still active now. I think they're like a genre of music all by themselves. I find it very hard to define this band, and I only really started listening to their music just over 1 year ago, and I can tell you that going through their back catalogue is like discovering a whole new genre in itself. Some people refer to them as neoclassical. There are elements of perhaps 80s goth at times. There is touches of classical music. There's medieval chant. There are all kinds of things. This band are just beautiful. They exude spirituality, and this particular song that I've chosen to play is from their 1987 album called Within the Realm of a Dying Sun. And the song itself is called Persephone. Now, if you don't know the myth of Persephone, I did actually tell this story in one of my podcasts. So I encourage you to go back and listen to the story, because Lisa Gerrard, in most of her songs, she sings in her own language. She's not singing in any particular known, recognized language, and that's something that's important to know. So, if you find your mind wandering as you're listening, going, what language is it she's singing? She's singing her own language. She's singing Lisa Gerrard language, which is beautiful and wonderful and accessible for us all in that respect. So this song represents that energy of the story. And if you don't know the story, very briefly, it's a Greek myth about the daughter of the goddess of the corn, or the goddess of the crops, Demeter, who is kidnapped and taken underground by Hades. And each year she's released, and when she's released back to her mother, that's when spring comes alive again, because when her daughter is taken away from her, Demeter doesn't bless the crops, in anger and in sadness of missing her daughter. And this story is an encapsulation or a metaphor for the processes that nature goes through. I think it's beautiful. I think this song is beautiful. So this is Persephone, The Gathering of Flowers by Dead Can Dance.
Maid, 'Maid, 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 '
Okay, folks, I hope that you enjoyed that. It's a song that just raises the hairs on the back of my neck. It just speaks in a way that lyrics don't, and that's so funny for me because I was one of those people who regarded lyrics as the most important part of a song. I was always like that. Even if I didn't like the music of a song, if I could connect with the lyrics, I would end up liking the song. So I suppose I looked at it primarily, primarily from a very different perspective, music than I do now. Because I'll be honest with you, I've changed so much in my relationship to music that sometimes I find lyrics a distraction, even when someone has beautiful poetical, I think I'm just making that up, beautiful poetic lyrics. I find that it sometimes distracts from the feeling of the music, this energy that music exudes, and I've really changed in that respect. But having said that, The reason that I said that is because I'm actually about to play a song that connects with nature through lyrics primarily, and it's the only one of the 4 songs I'm choosing that connects with nature in this way. And this is a track by Yoko Ono, and it's a rewritten version of an old track that she wrote many years ago called I Love You Earth. And this is from her most recent studio album, which is called Warzone. It's an incredible album. I think Yoko Ono is a very judged musician. I think she made music at a time when making experimental and interesting music as a woman, and also as a woman of in the West of a different race, also being married to someone who was the most celebrated male musician of that time, or at least one of them. I think what she went through was horrendous. I think the way she was treated and spoken about as an artist and as a musician was horrendous. And I think something that we often do when we listen to female musicians is judge them in ways that we wouldn't judge men. So often people, I think, pick up on her voice and say, well, oh, her voice is really, really shaky. It's not very strong. Oh, she can't sing. She can't hit these notes and all of this. And I think people are right in a lot of ways, but I think you could also say the same thing for Bob Dylan and David Bowie and many other male musicians. And the reason I bring her up is because I think she's been such a mistreated artist that I think sometimes we listen to a Yoko Ono song with the hate that was given to her in mind. We've somehow, if we've been paying attention to popular music anyway, and we know of Yoko Ono, I think we bring that with us when we're about to listen to a Yoko Ono track. So I just wanted to flag that up. You might still really dislike the song anyway, and that's totally fine. But I guess that's part of being mindful, and part of mindfulness is for me, it's how we engage with culture and how we try to disentangle, I guess, our collective judgments about certain artists based on certain things. So this song, I'm going to get off my political high horse there. I'm jumping off it. Can you? Even the kids are shouting at me from outside. I don't know if you can hear. Like, shut up! This is a nature podcast. We don't want it. I think it's important, but I'm moving away from it. And I just want to share this. It's called I Love You Earth. It's so heartfelt. It's so beautiful. And I love you, Yoko. That's all I'm going to say. Here we go, folks. I hope you like it as much as I do.
I love you, Earth, you are beautiful. I love the way you are. I know I never said it to you, but I wanna say it now. I love you, I love you, I love you, Earth. I love you, I love you, I love you now. I love you, Earth, you are beautiful. I love the way you shine. I love your valleys, I love your mornings. In fact, I love you every day. I know I never said it to you. Why? I would never know. Over blue mountains, over green fields, I want to scream about it now. I love you, I love you, I love you, Earth. I love you, I love you, meeting point of infinity. You are a turning point in eternity. I love you, I love you, I love you, Earth. I love you, I love you, I love you now.
Okay, folks, I really hope that you appreciated that beautiful little song by Yoko Ono, I Love You, Earth, and that's from her album Warzone. And now I'm going to play the last song of this nature and music themed episode. And it's more in the vein of the first track I played by Hiroshi Yoshimura, and it's by an American artist called Pauline Anna Strom. Now, Pauline Anna Strom made music in some ways in a similar vein to the Japanese environmental music I was talking about before, but perhaps was a little bit more psychedelic at times. And the music, this particular song, it's electronic, it's minimal, it's beautiful, I think, and it incorporates water sounds, I think, in a really peaceful and lovely way. So again, we're moving back into that realm of music without lyrics and even without voice. Just the sound of very simple, beautiful electronic music incorporating the sounds of nature. So this track is called Emerald Pool, and I will link to it on on my page on my website for this podcast, which is naturetherapyonline.net/podcast/music, where I will have links to all of the songs I've played today. And this is Pauline Anna Strom and Emerald Pool. Thank you, folks. I really hope that you appreciated that track also. And that track was also from the 1980s. I should have mentioned it's quite an old track, although she's still making music today. And something that I think is worth mentioning about Pauline Anna Strom in relation to Nature Connection is that she donates some of the profits of her music to a charity that cares for iguanas. She's got a passion for iguanas, and I think she's had a pet iguana for a very long time. You can see it sometimes in her videos, and it's something that has, I think, come up in her music and the themes. She really respects these animals, and where they are either mistreated or having their habitat destroyed, there are charities out there that care for them, and that's something that she's very passionate about, and something that she dedicates some of the profits of her music towards, which I think is a really beautiful thing, especially for underground musicians who don't make millions in the way that mainstream artists do, to still prioritize charitable causes and nature, and to put their money where their mouth is. I think it's a really honourable thing to do. So I want to say thank you, Pauline Anna Strom, for doing that. I think it's really important, and really should be acknowledged for the artists who do that. So okay, so that brings me to the end of the tracks that I'm playing. I want to say that I've really enjoyed doing this episode. I've actually had this, in my diary for a really long time, but it's something that I wanted to give some real time to and some thought to. I wanted to choose the tracks wisely. I hope I have. I hope that you've connected with them. I wanted to, I guess, bring this topic up and be represented by diverse pieces of music. And I think that's been one of the benefits of moving over to monthly episodes rather than weekly, because I knew that it was a big topic. I knew there was lots of aspects to this that I wanted to discuss, and I wanted to really give it the time it deserved. And I feel like I've been able to do that. I feel like I have the energy to, and I'm hoping that this is how season 2 will be. I'm hoping this is how moving forward with monthly podcasts will go. I feel like I've got the energy to go deeper into a topic than perhaps I have before. So, as I said before, it would be really such an incredible thing if you have songs that you know of that bring nature and music together that you want to share. And if you do, please go to naturetherapyonline.net/podcast/music and post it in the comments with a link. That's naturetherapyonline.net/podcast/music. And if you want to support the podcast, you can do that at patreon.com/naturetherapyonline. And you get lots of lovely rewards if you give a small financial monthly donation to the podcast to help keep it going, including access to our monthly nature chat events and nature-based tarot readings in the post, and other fun and things that will support your nature connection, hopefully. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Thanks for sticking around and still listening while I took a few months off to figure out what I wanted to do. And thank you for caring about this topic, this huge, vast and important topic of how we reconnect with nature, not just for ourselves, but for the well-being of the planet and for humans also. So thanks, folks. Take care. Have a lovely month, and I will see you next month. Bye-bye. Visit me online at naturetherapyonline.net.